Now, as this last batch of tomatoes gets ready, a couple of things. You want to use ripe tomatoes, but not overripe tomatoes. So what you want to do is you want a nice color to your tomato, no matter what kind of tomato it is, and you want it to have a little bit of give to it. You don't want an underripe tomato that still has a lot of green on it, because it's not going to taste as good, and the acidity level in it is not going to be as good. Now, when you're peeling and dicing your tomatoes, every once in a while, one will slip through that probably shouldn't be there. If there's ever any doubt, if you see any kind of mold, or if it just doesn't look right, that's part of the reason why I think I do it over two different bowls. I kind of peel it over the one bowl and then start to cut it and put it into the other bowl. That way I could get a quick visual on it. There were a couple, as I went to put them into the water bath, they have white mold on them, and I will not use ones that, even though the tomato itself looks pretty good, I won't use them for canning. And they'll probably, I wish I had a chicken, because I'd give them to the chicken. All of the tomatoes have been peeled and diced. I started out with about 9 pounds of tomatoes, because I know from previous notes that it yields about 8 pounds of tomatoes, and I got 7 pint jars plus a little bit from that. So I did have a couple that weren't any good, so maybe I won't get the 7 pints, but from the measurement in that big bowl, one right there, I think I should be okay. Now what I'm going to do is very slowly, I clean this pot out, the one that I was blanching the tomatoes in, and that's the one we're going to cook our tomatoes in. We're doing hot pack. It means that our jars will be hot and our tomatoes will be hot. So we're going to do about 2 cups at a time. We're going to put them in on medium-high heat. I'm going to use a potato masher to crush them up a bit. And we want it to be at a gentle boil, and stir it gently so it doesn't scorch, and keep adding the tomatoes in. And then the last little batch, they don't need to be crushed. They could just be added in. Then it says to boil gently for 5 minutes before we begin to pack our jars. As you can see in the background, I do have the teapot plugged in, and it will come to a boil. I'm going to put my lids, not the rings. The newer lids, you do not have to keep boiling on the stove. You just need to be sure that they're clean and at least warm, because they've changed the way the rings are made in the lids. I'm also going to turn on my canning pot, because it won't take that long for this to heat up. Yes, it is a flat top stove. I need to get the jars in there for now, so let me get to doing that. I fill the jars with water that's already in the pot, and you need to do that, otherwise they'll float to the top and can cause a real mess. But this way, I know I have 7 jars ready. They don't need to be boiling when you put the tomatoes in, but they'll be hot and the water will be almost ready. So I put the lid back on, and that way that'll be ready to go. We're going to turn this element on, and we're going to start putting our tomatoes in there. I have a potato masher. This is the one that I use. I keep all my tools over here. So I'm going to start to add the tomatoes. According to this container, and it actually is a great piece of vintage Tupperware that I've had forever. And where are the markings on it? It seems like there are about maybe 10 cups of tomatoes in here. So, ooh, pot's still hot from before. So that's about 2 cups. Put it in and smash them up. Now I probably could have used a smaller pot. I just had this one handy. So we're just gonna smush that. Get out our little pot to put our lids in. Once you get a system down, this becomes a lot easier, and also when you're not filming, you'll get your own system down to what works for you in your kitchen. As I said, I do not take the seeds out. You could, but that's another step, and I don't have the proper tool to take the seeds out, and it adds another step to everything. I'm okay with the seeds in it. No one that I share the crushed tomatoes with has any kind of dietary restrictions in that regard. So I turn that off, and we're just gonna pour that in with our lids. And this way we'll also have extra water if I need to turn that on really quick, if we need extra water in the water bath canner. That comes in very, very handy. 1, 2. Generally, it will take, now the plum tomatoes did seem to take a little bit longer because there were so many and they are smaller. Got a little piece of something in there. I don't like the way it looks. Put it there for now. So it did take me a little bit longer than I'm used to. But generally from start to finish, I can usually start cleaning the kitchen before, get everything out, prep everything, and be done and cleaned up inside of 2 hours. So, and that's only with one batch of the tomatoes. Give it a little bit more. That's why it doesn't really matter what size chunks you're putting in, because you're going to crush them anyway. Put in all of your liquid. And then that can all go in the sink. Here is the waste, the skins and whatever cores I got out in there. We're going to turn this down because remember, we want a gentle boil. We don't want a full rolling boil. And we're just going to give that another couple crushes. And I'll bring you back when I'm ready to start filling the jars.